For the longest time, Tesla has basically run away with the EV market in the US. But old school car companies are getting more and more serious about catching up and putting out great electric options of their own. A prime example of that is the car that you see here. I'm Tim Levin, senior reporter at InsideEVs, and this is the Audi Q6 E-Tron. Before we get into the Q6 E-Tron's specs, design, and tech, you should know why it's such a hugely important EV for Audi. The brand has sold electric models before, but none with the kind of advanced tech and mass appeal of the Q6. The Q8 E-Tron was basically a combustion SUV with battery stuffed inside it. The Q4 E-Tron is smaller and based on a Volkswagen platform shared with the VW ID.4. And the E-Tron GT is a sedan, which, let's face it, not that many Americans want these days. With the Q6 though, Audi is bringing out the big guns. It's basically a battery-powered alternative to the Q5, which is the brand's best seller. It also debuts an entirely new EV platform and new software, making it a big deal for Audi's parent company, the Volkswagen Group. So the Q6 E-Tron debuts basically the latest and greatest EV tech from Audi and the Volkswagen Group. It's called the Premium Platform Electric, or PPE. And there's a lot that's new about it, but I'll just give you the broad strokes here. The important stuff is that this uses an 800-volt architecture, which should allow for faster charging, and it also has brand new Audi-developed motors that are more efficient and more power dense. So what does that mean for the Audi Q6 specifically? It means that you get up to 321 miles of range in the rear-wheel drive option, which is really good. That's like right up there with rivals like the Model Y or the Cadillac Lyriq. It also means that you can expect really fast charging speeds out of this, faster than most of the other EVs on the market. The Q6 E-Tron can charge at a rate of 270 kilowatts, which allows for really fast charging stops. It means that in certain models, you'll be able to do 10% to 80% in just 21 minutes. And now that varies based on the model because there are actually two different battery chemistries at work here. But in general, you can expect really fast charging speeds from the Audi Q6 E-Tron. There are three different trim options to choose from. You have the rear-wheel drive, which is going to be that longest range option with the 321 miles of range. There is a Quattro model, which is Audi's name for all-wheel drive, and that'll do 307 miles. And then there's the kind of big daddy, the SQ6, which is the sportiest and the highest performance model, and that'll do 275 miles, which it's not over 300, but that's still pretty good, especially for a vehicle with so much horsepower and torque. So let's talk a little bit about the design of the Q6 E-Tron. Audi was really intentional about not making this look like what they call a jelly bean or a melted butter shape, which I think is probably a pretty good idea. You look at this and it doesn't really scream EV, right? It just kind of looks like an Audi, and that was the point. They didn't want to go the route of, they won't say it, but somebody like Mercedes, which came out with all the EQ cars that have this really rounded and kind of bulbous shape that people weren't really a big fan of. It didn't have that stately look that you expect from a Mercedes. And so Audi really wanted to avoid that here. Instead of that melted butter shape, you get a really sporty look, a really nice stance, these great crisp lines over the quarter panels. The only things that'll really tell you this is an EV are the grille up front, which is actually not a grille at all. It's more of a painted body panel. There's also this little detail on the side that is supposed to evoke a battery pack, this thick stripe across the bottom of the car. Otherwise, it really just looks like an Audi, and I think it looks cool. So the last thing I'll say about the Audi Q6 E-Tron's design is that you get this really cool feature of customizable daytime running lights and taillights. And specifically in the SQ6 E-Tron, it has these OLED taillights that look really cool. You can basically customize a bunch of different patterns made up of these little panels, and we'll show you what that looks like. Here we are in the interior of the Audi Q6 E-Tron. I spent all day yesterday driving this, and it has a really stylish interior. Everything feels super sturdy and well built. The real pièce de résistance, or whatever the German word for that might be, is this screen setup. As standard, you get this dual screen display, which has a driver cluster that shows you your speed and all that kind of stuff, plus a bunch of other information. And then you have a really big and crisp and easy to use infotainment screen that I've really enjoyed using. I think it's a pretty good effort from Audi. The whole thing is curved toward the driver, which helps, It means that reaching this far corner, even for somebody like me who's tall, that can be hard in other cars. But here, you can reach everything pretty well. And what I would also say is, it's super crisp. Like, you navigate through these tiles and everything scrolls really fast, it swipes really fast. It's a pretty good infotainment system, and it's a big upgrade from what you'd get in earlier Audis. You have your navigation, which, you know, I think it passes the move it around really fast test pretty well. One thing that people might be kind of annoyed about is that all the climate controls are here in the bottom of the screen. It's nice that, you know, everything's fairly accessible since it's all right there and it doesn't go away. But let's say you want to manually just change your fan speed or something while you're driving. You got to go into this menu and then you got to turn it up. Which, if you're somebody like me who's constantly messing with that kind of stuff, that might be kind of frustrating. It's important to mention that this is a totally new software setup from Audi. It's based on Android Automotive, which previous Audis weren't, and that really shows here. This feels a lot like kind of a tech product, you know? It doesn't have that clunky feel that a lot of other automotive software has. You even have an app store where you can download things like YouTube or games, and the whole idea is that Audi expects you to, you know, be sitting at that fast charger for your 21 minutes or whatever, and you can pop on a YouTube video or play Beach Buggy Racer or do whatever you need to do. There's also, as an option, this passenger screen, which I don't really know if that's something that's going to take off, to be honest, in the auto world. It's something that more and more automakers are trying out to basically, you know, give your passenger something to do while you're driving and they're bored sitting there. One interesting thing about it is that it has a privacy screen on it. If somebody in the passenger seat is watching YouTube videos or Netflix or whatever, the driver shouldn't actually be able to see that, kind of like, you know, when you put that kind of privacy screen protector on your phone. I think, you know, sitting with somebody in a car on a long road trip, like, it's fun to talk and listen to music or whatever. I don't think that you necessarily need to be here, like, scrolling TikTok and listening to your Bluetooth headphones, but you can do that if you buy the Audi Q6 E-Tron. There's also a brand new voice assistant here in the Audi that is supposed to be able to respond to a lot more commands and be a lot more natural than previous voice assistants. And so far, it's been working pretty good. Like, it still does some of that weird stuff where it doesn't get what you're saying or it interrupts you or whatever. If somebody's here, you can say, "Hey, Audi."
Hello, how can I assist you?
There you go. Never mind, Audi.
Please repeat what you said again.
There you go. See, there's some of that little stickiness, but Audi, I don't need you right now.
Sorry, I still did not understand that.
All right, we'll intervene there. If you're alone in the car, basically you can just say things to it and it'll do them, like turn on the air conditioning or route you somewhere or whatever. Another interesting thing is they actually programmed this to recognize when you mispronounce the name of the automaker. So you can say, "Hey, Audi." "Hey, Audi." "Hey."
Yes, how can I help?
Yeah, there you go. So they made it friendly to
Yes,
Americans.
how can
They made it friendly.
Sorry, I did not understand that. Can you repeat it, please?
Never mind. There we go. They made it friendly to Americans who can't pronounce the word Audi, is what I'm trying to say. "Hey, Audi."
Yes, how can I help?
"Can you turn on the heated steering wheel?"
I am turning on the steering wheel heating.
Very nice. Very last thing in here is this car is riding on a brand new electrical and software architecture for the Volkswagen Group and for Audi. Instead of there being basically like 75 or 80 or 90 different little computers around the whole car, this one has 5 main really high-powered computers that are powering most functions, and that includes the infotainment display. So you have one really powerful computer that is dedicated to this, and that's part of why it's so fast and it can run YouTube videos and all of that. It should bring a level of over-the-air software updates to Audis that the brand has never really had before. So over time, Q6 E-Tron owners should expect to basically get little downloads that will improve functions or add different features. Volkswagen has had some really high profile struggles when it comes to software and electrical architectures. This is the latest and greatest that the Volkswagen Group has to offer, but that's going to change pretty soon because Volkswagen has made this partnership with Rivian, and so it's going to basically benefit from all of that startup's knowledge and expertise when it comes to electrical architectures. Here I am driving the Q6 E-Tron, and like I said, I drove this thing all day yesterday, and one of the first things I noticed, and one of the things I kept noticing all day, was just how quiet it is in here. And that's thanks to both really nice acoustic glass, but also a bunch of other work that Audi has done to make the motors quieter. So what you get is a really serene and smooth and comfortable ride. The ride quality is super controlled, super smooth, and it's really enjoyable. You can get this with a head-up display or a HUD. So right now I'm basically looking at the speed limit and my speed projected up on the windshield in front of me. If you're using the navigation, it'll show you basically turn-by-turn directions and kind of direct you to where your turn is. You do get a few different regenerative braking settings. You can turn it to a B mode, which is basically your one pedal driving, and that's gonna be a really high level of regen braking. And then you have a coast mode that basically operates like a gas car. You know, you let off the gas and it just rolls, which Audi said was really important to them to give people the option to make this feel just like their Q5 or their gas car. And then you have a couple of intermediate settings where you can have other levels of regen braking. Not everybody wants one pedal all the time, not everybody wants coasting, so that's a nice touch. There are even these paddles that basically allow you to momentarily add regen braking, which it's a little bit like what you'd get on the GM EVs, which is a paddle that is basically a secondary brake pedal, but it's only regenerative braking. So in here, I can click this paddle and you see I'm slowing down only using regen braking. Even when you hit the brake pedal, almost all of the time you're using regenerative braking in this car. You have to really slam the brakes basically for the actual mechanical friction brakes to kick in. So most of the time you're adding power back into the battery with your braking. Like you'd expect from an electric car, and especially I'm driving the all-wheel drive dual motor version. It does have pretty good pickup at most speeds, especially from a red light. Nice low-end torque. Either in the SQ6 or in this one, there are a bunch of different drive modes. There's balanced, dynamic, comfort, efficiency, and off-road. I can't say that I felt a giant difference between the dynamic, the sporty mode, and the more comfort-oriented ones. If you put it into dynamic mode, the car will actually lower using its air suspension. The steering feel will get a little bit heavier, and it gets a little bit more entertaining and fun to drive. It starts to handle maybe a little bit better. It's not a huge difference. I don't think you're gonna be blown away by the sportiness or the handling, but it definitely kicks things up a little bit, makes things a little bit more fun for some of those twisty back roads. That's the Audi Q6 E-Tron. It's a big step forward for the brand, and it's a great overall package for EV buyers. The only big sticking point here is the same sticking point that you get in a lot of electric cars, and that's price. The 2025 Q6 E-Tron starts at around $65,000, which is about 20 grand more than the Q5, the gas-powered equivalent. But if you have a little bit more money to spend, the Q6 is a great option. Remember to like this video, subscribe to InsideEVs on YouTube, and leave us a comment below to let us know what you want to see more of. Thanks for watching.